Hey guys, the last video I made, or maybe it was the second to last video, second to last one I made it about the media and how they're reacting to the whole Zach Wilson green-white game. And after it was over, I said, I don't want to come on here every day and talk about the media. I'm not going to be one of those guys that just bitches out the media all the time. But I've got to go there one more time. And I have a funny feeling it's not going to be the last. Ever since the green and white game, something has developed that looks like it's starting to get a little bit out of control. I saw it in a couple of videos last night. I saw it on video reference on how Trey Lance is off to like a fantastic start, and they continually show these two practice touchdown passes he's thrown in practice over and over and over and over again. And Trevor Lawrence, how he looked incredible in the Jacksonville version of the green and white game. No pads, no pads. You cannot even compare the two situations that those quarterbacks were put in compared to Zach. But I'm not going to make this a homer thing about, hey, listen, I hope Trey Lance ends up being a really great quarterback, and I hope Trevor Lawrence ends up being, well, he's in our conference, so not that great of a quarterback. It's not about that. It's just about the unfair advantage of playing in New York. And you wonder if a guy like Zach Wilson right now is probably just thinking to himself, man, it would have been so much easier if he just went to a different city, than to go through this over one scrimmage. Because they were at it full force on Monday, judging the Monday practice. How did he recover from such a nightmare, from such an absolute nightmare? And I started thinking about the media, and I started thinking about why. Why does the media act like this? My brain never went down that road. Why? Because this is all about, if you're the media, this is all about making money, right? It's all about making money. I mean, if you're writing for a paper, they want to bring a writer aboard that is going to bring in readers so their volume goes up. I mean, that's what this is all about, right? I just can't find anything else. But there is something else. There definitely is something else, especially for these writers and especially for the younger writers. And I started thinking about my childhood. My father got the New York Times delivered every single day, 7 days a week. The Sunday paper, gigantic Sunday paper. And in our household, it was always a little bit of a battle on non-school days and throughout the summer of who would get the sports section if our team won the previous day. If the team lost the previous day, there wasn't that much of a battle going on to who gets the sports section. And I started thinking over the years how many times I've watched replays of Jet games. And I came to this conclusion last night that over the years, I have never watched a replay of a Jet loss except a preseason game. Those I've watched a bunch. But a regular season or playoff loss, I have never watched the replay of a game. I have never watched the replay of a Knick loss. I have never watched the replay of a Yankee loss. I have never watched the replay of a Ranger loss unless I heard there was a fight in that game that I wanted to see or something like that. Oh, or one of the young kids that the Rangers have gotten their hands on the last couple of years scored a goal. And then I would just basically, fast forward to wherever their goal was. But a full game, I have watched hundreds, thousands of replays of Jet, not thousands, hundreds of replays of Jet, but thousands of my team replays of games where they won. But I've never watched games where they lost. My point behind that is I compare it to the writers. If that's how we are as sports fans, and I'm sure a lot of you guys are like me, maybe some of you guys watch losses because you're looking for other things, and that's fine. But I think for the most part, we're going to watch the replay of the Jets-Patriots, Rex Ryan days, when the Jets beat the Patriots in that one game to get to the AFC Championship game. I mean, I've watched that. I think I've watched that 3 times this spring and summer since the season ended last year, and now I think I've watched that game 3 times. And I started to think about the media back in the day when I was younger, how they were so accused of being homers. You know, to this day, the TV guys and the radio guys probably still are to a bit, but not as nearly as badly as they used to be. I mean, it's not even close. Especially like the Met announcers. You know, when I listen to Met games, the Yankee announcers maybe a little bit more, definitely more than the Met announcers. The Yankee radio, forget about it. They're very home. But the writers, even back then, would criticize our players, would criticize our team. They did, but never to a point of just, really looking for crap, I mean, I think back to like the late 70 Yankees with all the crap that went on with that team, you know? You talk about, I mean, it was total crap. And look about the Met teams in the 80s, right? That insane Met team. Not that the media buried stuff, they would come out with stuff, but still, they wrote for the team, and they knew that when the fans picked up the paper, they wanted to read good things about their players. They didn't want to, we don't need to read, I don't want to pick up the paper and talk about, and hear a writer last year try to soften a 3-13 team, I didn't want to hear, I don't want to read bullshit. But at the same time, I do want to read positive stuff about my team. And I'm not going to sit there and read negative stuff, especially when I disagree with it. And these writers have to believe. And you know what? They don't have to believe. They know it. You hear them say it. You hear them say that they get criticized all the time on how negative they are. So if they're getting criticized like that all the time, and they know it by the people that read and pay for, this is business 101 here. The people that read and pay for their stuff, the things they write, wouldn't they be at least a little bit careful on what angles they go down, what angles they go? I don't understand it. I don't get it. And the only conclusion I can come to is that these guys are not writing about today. They're not writing about today. When they're writing, when they see that practice and that scrimmage on Saturday night and they write that print for Sunday, our thoughts are that we're going to sit down and read an honest judgment of not only Sunday, what happened Saturday night, but what's happened so far. And what we've seen so far is a young guy that has looked really good at times and has showed the absolute hiccups that I know Trey Lance has shown and I know Trevor Lawrence has shown. But you're just not going to get that out of the Jacksonville media. You're just not going to get, if Trevor Lawrence had a bad 2 hours, out of the Jacksonville media. It's not going to come from them. But it'll come from the New York media 100%. And again, it boils down to, they are not writing about last night and tomorrow. Today. They are writing about tomorrow, their future, their possibility of going to work for ESPN or some other major network. Their aspirations are a lot different. They truly don't care about the fan base. They care about themselves. And you want to know something? I can understand it. But it doesn't work. And if I was one of the bosses over at the Daily News or the Post or any of these local papers, and I saw guys that were writing against sales, possible newspaper sales, and instead writing for their futures, I would call them in because they're costing me money as a company. I won't read their crap anymore. I just don't do it. I won't do it. I won't do it. I stopped doing it about 3 years ago. I just won't do it anymore. And they think they can get away with what they get away with because they write these absurd puff pieces for the first 3 or 4 weeks of spring and just maybe the first week of summer practices. You'll hear a lot of puff pieces about guys that probably aren't going to make the roster, guys that were not supposed to make the roster that might make the roster. But when it comes to the big guys, the big guns, you're not going to read puff pieces until they excel and they have no choice. And then you'll see them make a complete 180 and start writing real positive. And we're supposed to completely forget about everything they've written in the past. Now, the first thought you would have, like, nobody forgets. They write, what they wrote last week to them, it doesn't mean anything whatsoever. It means nothing. It means nothing on their resume whatsoever. It really doesn't. I mean, unless they're disclosing ridiculous rumors that are so far-fetched, and none of them come true. Writing negatively about a player, calling out a player, things like that, do not come back to haunt them. I mean, look at the amount of time some of these guys have spent writing about certain teams. And then again, look at some of the guys that used to write about teams that are no longer writing about them. That are now working for, let's say, ESPN and some of the bigger publications. They move on. They move on. I could become. I'm a below average writer, I would probably say. I could become the most popular Jet reporter within 2 weeks if I was hired by a newspaper. I'm totally convinced, after what I've thought about the last 24 hours, no doubt about it. I wouldn't sit there and say, after looking at this team's practice, they're going to go 16-0. I don't mean even writing that kind of bull nonsense, because nobody would buy that either. The fan base wants honesty. They do. They want their writers to be honest about their team. But I would be as positive as I possibly can, because that's really what it's all about. I wouldn't spin crap. I wouldn't make stuff up, but I'd be as positive as I possibly can. And a real positive writer would become an overnight success in this area. And we're just filled with just complete negative. And what really bothers me is that there's certain guys that I really enjoy listening to. I really like listening to. I listen to their podcasts. And I've heard their skepticism, over the last year, when they talk about a certain subject and everything. And usually sometimes I kind of agree with it. But it's off season and it's not a big deal and who cares. But now I'm hearing it now. And some of the questions that are being asked. And it's just incredible. Damian Woody was asked last night by a national reporter how he felt that Trevor Lawrence and Trey Lance were getting all this positive press and looking so good so far. And Zach Wilson is getting beat up a little bit. And my question to you, as a Jet fan, watching what you've watched so far, does anyone deserve to ask that question? Is that a really fair question? Is that just such a loaded, horrible question? Knowing what we've seen in Zach Wilson, knowing about the incredible passes to Corey Davis, knowing about the unbelievable passes to Elijah Moore, knowing everything we've heard, a green and white game with pads, 11 on 11, going after it, man. Not no pads. Nonsense, which happened in Jacksonville. And I just think it's so unfair. It's really, really unfair. Again, I'm not going to get into this whole media thing every single video. I really, really am not. But it just brought me back to I just remember when I was young and I would read our local writers and writing about our team. And yeah, when they sucked, they would say they sucked. And then when they were good, yeah, they would say, yeah, they were really good. And these writers, when the Jets are really good, will do that sometimes. Don't get me wrong. They don't. It's just the controversy they look for. It's so unhealthy for a team. It's so unhealthy for a team. You know? And part of when hiring a head coach, it was something that I always thought about when the Jets hire a head coach, is have somebody that's going to keep the media in place. And right now, I can't tell if Saleh's that guy. We'll see what happens. But at some point, the players and Zach Wilson, watching his interviews, this kid's fine. I'm not even worried about this kid. I'm not worried about this kid as far as handling the press. It's not going to get to him. It gets to me a lot more than it gets to him, which is strange, but it does. It gets to me a lot more than it gets to him, probably. But anyway, that's my thinking. If you guys have any comments about that, leave it in there. Maybe I'm missing something. I probably am. I usually am on everything I talk about. So if you ever have any comments or anything like that, feel free to leave comments down below. I'll try to respond to any comments you guys have. Please subscribe. Please like if you can. And we'll have more videos coming out. I'm going to have a lot of videos basically coming out over the next 7 to 10 days, leading up to, probably until like the third preseason game. And then I'll get more down to, being a little more selective with the videos. But trying to fill it up a little bit and try to make as many videos as come to mind that I've been holding on to for so long. But eventually I'll probably run out of thoughts. But for the media right now, I'll try to take a break, but something tells me that tomorrow morning I'm going to wake up and be really pissed off about something else. I hope not. Anyway, please leave a comment. Okay? Your thoughts. What do you think? Why do they do what they do? It doesn't sell papers. I think we can all agree it does not sell papers. Those articles could sell papers in Buffalo, in Miami, in New England, but they're not buying our papers. So how does that sell papers here? Giant fans want to read that? Doesn't make any sense. So, your thoughts. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.